Yellow purple Croc into black yellow Luffy. This should be a pretty interesting matchup. I would say it runs pretty similarly to like a Nell versus black yellow Luffy, just because we run a lot of like the same kit to a degree. Now I do have some shenanigans, right? We've got the O Come My Way, which is a nice little slap to the face for decks that want to attack really high, as I can turn any of my cards or any of my characters into a blocker. Or we ended up losing the die roll and going first. We're going to play out the Miss Valentine here. Miss Valentine's going to find a Miss Wednesday likely here, as we can just play that next turn to start ramping here. Yellow Purple Croc is a pretty, niche deck. Not a lot of people know what the Baroque Works cards do, so my guy here just giving a little read here, catching up on his card knowledge here as he reads cards that literally only see play in one deck. But opponent's going to their forward on turn here. A little interesting. I do have a Kadatsu in hand potentially to clean up like a potential play on 4, but likely what's going to happen is it's just going to be like a Searcher or something like that. But it ends up being a Kuzan. Kuzan's pretty nice here. Opponent has not taken any of his life yet. I haven't decided to punch him yet, so we're going to use this Kadatsu here for the probably only time it's ever going to have value to clean up that Kuzan here. And I think I make a mistake in this game, and I think I should have just been more aggressive. I ended up having a second Kuzan in hand that I was hoping I could potentially lean into again, but honestly, I should have just started swinging face, because I'm not probably likely going to use that effect ever again. So opponents here is attacking me for 5k. I don't know if I want to go to 2 life at this point. I do have that Miss Wednesday in the front, and I deciding to counter with that. Hindsight, should have countered with the Gadatsu, right? Gadatsu should have been the counter at this point. That Bond Clay is pretty nice, though with the addition of Rocket Luffy, Bond Clay has gotten a lot worse in this specific matchup here. Going to go ahead and play out the 5-cost Luffy. 5-cost Luffy is going to go up to 2k. He's going to trash the top card of his life and down to 3 life. So that Gadatsu is cleaning up at this point, just a Flampe. Not really worth cleaning up at this point, because that is potential fodder for them to Gecko Moria into to potentially like eat a life if I leave them at 1 or something like that. So that, it's not really worth me spending resources to kill that. Have the Bond Clay in hand, also have the Valentine. We're going to go ahead and start with a Valentine here. Yep, Valentine, hopefully going to search us something pretty cool. Maybe an 8-cost Croc here. Valentine could just find herself, right? I think I already have an 8-cost Croc in hand, though I honestly don't remember at this point. If I'm thumbing for the Valentine, likely I already have one in hand. I do, in fact, have one already in hand. And I'm just going to go ahead and just grab another one. At this point, I'm kind of looking for O Come My Ways. O Come My Way, I think, is a very solid card in this matchup. Especially if like I have a Kiku on board, or for like a turn that they're trying to go for lethal, I could surprise them, right? If they end up swinging swinging all out, basically with like their Sabo blockers and everything, and like a situation where I could potentially leave them open, right? And opponent does not expect to Come My Way at this point. Valentine's going to go ahead and look at the top 4. We find another Croc and a Valentine here. I'm going to go ahead and just grab the Croc, because I've already bottomed 1 Croc. I would potentially bottom a second Croc here, given to the opponent for a little read here. In hindsight, though, I still haven't seen no Come My Way. I've looked at I've Valentine searched 3 times. I've looked at the top like 15, 20. I've probably seen the top 20 cards in my deck, and not a single O Come My Way. That's honestly what I really need in this matchup, because there is going to be points where Luffy's swinging really heavy, or Moria's swinging really heavy, and I need to just find a way to get out of that attack without committing any life resources at this point. My hand is starting to clog up a little bit. I've got 2 Yamatos, I've got 2 Crocs, I've got a Gadatsu that's literally useless. And again here, I think I should have just been more aggressive and just slapping my opponent. Opponent's on 8 Dawn at this point. That Gadatsu could have swung, my leader could have swung to just pressure my opponent to the best of my degree, because ultimately that Luffy is just going to eat the top card of their life anyways. And so it really, like, at this point doesn't matter. I should just put pressure on their hand, because look at how large that Black Yellow Luffy's hand's going. Unfortunately, we're not in a blue deck, right, where we would love to see a pudding. So we have to kind of work with what we got. And this is something that I'm still learning. The Black-Yellow Luffy matchup with other decks, right? I know how to play it with some decks. I know how to play it, with Red Purple Law. Rest in peace, Red Purple Law. I know how to play against it with Dofi to a degree. Dofi, because you have like the Gravity Blades and the puddings. And then other decks, not so much. Obviously, aggressive decks I'm kind of fine with, but I'm still kind of learning the play pattern with some of these other decks. Luckily, we have a pretty great Black Yellow Luffy player at our locals that'll allow me to learn, right, and learn from mistakes. Ultimately, that is part of what this series is, right? I dub it, quote unquote, a strategic commentary, but ultimately, It's me looking back and complimenting myself, maybe to a degree, patting myself on the back for decent plays, and then also criticizing myself for plays that maybe I should have done to make myself better, for me to learn, but also for everyone else to learn, right? This is communal learning. This is free communal learning for everybody. And if you like this type of content and enjoy watching this type of gameplay, definitely feel free to subscribe. Really supports the channel. Join the community here, because we all love One Piece and we love getting better at One Piece. Ultimately, that's kind of the goal here of why I even do this, right? It's for myself, it's for the community. Opponent's gonna go ahead and just do Luffy, Black Yellow Luffy shenanigans. So he attached 2 to his lead. For those that don't know, he attached 2 to his lead. If he has 0 life, he can discard a card from his hand and then put up to 2 5 costs from his hand or discard or trash into his life. And then he combos with the little kids. So the kid versions of some of these characters like Luffy, Sabo, and Ace. If the matching older version is in the top of the life, they can go ahead and put it directly into play and then give their leader plus 2,000 power for the entire turn cycle, not just their opponent's turn, but my turn as well. So now I'm looking at, I think that's a 7,000 power leader here. Opponent just went a little heavy, swung 9k, 8k. My hand's a little clunky, so I couldn't really counter that. My hand is getting huge, right? I thought Black Yellow Luffy's hand was big, but look how big my hand is at this point. And we're gonna go ahead and swing. We're gonna swing 8k, just pressure here, because I think we're just gonna slam down the Croc to gain a life here. So swing 8k, just get a 1k out of hand or potential block, and then go ahead and play out the big Croc Daddy himself. At this point, my kind of game plan is just to keep playing these big guys over and over again to potentially get a big enough board to where I can just start like pressuring, right? If my opponent sits at 7k, I shouldn't care about it. Or if my opponent sits at 9k, I shouldn't care about it, right? So that's kind of the edge that these decks also get, is if you can just play a lot of 9 costs and then just start swinging like 11, 11, 11 or 13, 13, 13, right? Opponent eventually, their hand has to buckle, right? To where we can potentially swing for victory. Now this Black Yellow Luffy player is playing very well, leaving 1 life up, deciding to go for a 7k lead instead of a 9k lead on that specific turn. And then we kind of get the golden turn here. This is where Gecko Moria comes out on their Tendon turn, puts 2 kids into play. He's already got a kid in life, so he's going to go ahead and activate that, giving his leader plus 2,000. That is a Rocket Luffy. Rocket Luffy could clean up basically just a Miss Valentine, or combined with something like an Ice Age could clean up to a 9 cost. So I do have to worry about that as he's cycling these back and forth, back and forth. And then now he could attach 2 Dawn to his lead to then put 2 more characters into life, right? And then I'd assume he would use that Kid Sabo to put the Sabo into play to take his leader up to 9k here. It's likely the play pattern that he could potentially do. Now, there is like a little bit of fear on my opponent's side, as I do have quite a grip. Opponent did ask me how many cards I had in hand. I think the answer was 9 at the time. I have a lot of cards in hand. That's a little scary. Now, little does my opponent know that hand is complete bricks, right? Sometimes it happens. Sometimes you run a lot of big characters, and those big characters get stuck in your hand instead of in play. Opponent's putting a Black Yellow Luffy can sometimes put on a lot of pressure, especially with that 5-cost Luffy out on the field. And unfortunately, my opponent's played in such a way to where I can't even KO that 5-cost Luffy, even if I could. Yamato at this point is only going to be able to kill something for 3 or less. Ganatsu for 1, just because of the life. Just because Black Yellow Luffy likes to sit at such a low life total. This kind of hurts a lot of my kit, right? And that's something potentially with like 08 that I could potentially would be nice, is like adding in Nami's, right? The Egghead Nami over the Ganatsu. It's a little side tech here of what I'm potentially thinking for 08, but I digress. We're gonna go ahead and activate Croc's ability, cycle a card. We grab another uncounterable card. That's pretty gross. We're gonna go ahead and throw that back in the yard here. No time for that shenanigans here, as my hand is looking a little bricked up here. We're gonna go ahead and take another hit here. That was an 8 and a 9, and then this next turn we're probably just gonna play something out again. At this point, I could play out a Yamato, but I think I just want to keep putting pressure on that 8-drop Luffy to some degree to try to, or that 8k Luffy, because I really just need that to stop hitting me. Ultimately, that is what the opponent loves to do with that Luffy, is just keep swinging with it. So to be able to get rid of it, it would be incredibly awesome. But alas, in this specific matchup, I don't have really an answer to that. There is the idea of putting in, what is it? There's a card from like 03 that like minuses 2 Dawn and lets you bottom deck a 4. Is it a 4 or 5? I don't remember. But that is a card that's being played potentially in the future in one specific deck. That's a little too much of a Dawn reset for me. I already have 8 cost Croc resetting 2 Dawn. And again, Crocodile's leader ability only happens on your opponent's turn. So if you minus Dawn on your turn, it literally doesn't matter. I think it would be pretty strong if it was both turns, maybe even borderline broken, just because you could do a lot of shenanigans with that. And, you know, having a permanent, 5 cost kid blocker in play is kind of dumb. Or at least for the effect. All right, passing back to the opponent's turn here. Opponent's got a lot to think about because I think I have 10 or 11 cards in hand at this point. As far as my opponent knows, those are all 2Ks, right? That's every 2K in my deck right now. And that, that's going to make combat pretty spicy here. Going to go ahead and start with just a 6. I'm going to go ahead and counter that. Opponent here thinking what they could potentially do. I do have 2 big boys on the field, right? So those Sabos are unlikely to attack at any point now. So I do have to keep that in mind here. Starting with the Luffy first basically means that he might try to kill something this turn. So there is the potential of him going for like an Ice Age to clear one of my Crocs, which is ultimately like one of the best plays. I'm going to go ahead and just cycle. We're going to grab more counter at this point. So that was just a 1K Bond Clay to hand, which will potentially give me a little bit more counter. And then that's just a 9K in the lead. I'm going to go ahead and take that. In hindsight, I could have countered out of that. But like I said, my hand was not looking the greatest at this point. I definitely should have activated the second Croc because he ends up Ice Aging and killing the Croc I did not activate. I could have activated both of those Crocs at the same time to potentially cycle again, because ultimately I think Okam My Way is kind of my answer at this point for these shenanigans. The opponent's going to go ahead and play out the Luffy from hand. Going to go ahead and put Rocket Luffy into play, making his leader a 7K. And then likely what we're going to see here is just attach 2 to lead and then play out more, maybe another kid from hand to take himself back up to 9K. Because if he doesn't, I potentially have some ways in. But again, his hand is still pretty heavy. Not nearly as heavy as mine. Opponent's going to go ahead and just use the Rocket Luffy to clean up one of my Valentines. Hey, maybe times are getting desperate here. Those Valentines could definitely, they could definitely swing up in their weight class, right? They could go up to 7K if my opponent decides not to go any higher this turn. Opponent still has a lot of Dawn to work with. I am down a Croc. I am crying. I literally have I have that 5 cost event thumbed up at the top of my hand there, that Ragnarok, that literally KOs an 8 or less, but I cannot KO anything because he keeps playing Sabos out. So we're gonna go ahead and see A3 Brothers. At this point, like I have a window, right, where I could KO something if he doesn't see another Sabo, but he does go ahead and grab another kid. He does have 6 Dawn open, which allows him to attach 2 to lead and then potentially play out 2 more kids here. So likely we're going to see another Sabo come out, which will protect his board yet again, because I would love to start answering some of his threats. Now, if I did take the turn off to Ragnarok, I'd be dead anyways because I'm at 0 life. Right? Opponent's now swinging 8K at lead. I have to counter out of this one because, I die. Right, and because I didn't use the second Crocodile's ability, I kind of missed out on that extra cycle here. He was asking how many cards I had in hand. I was telling him I had 7. I have like 4K counter in hand or something like that, because I just used 3 cards to counter out of an 8K, and that should be enough for my opponent here to realize that he should have everything he needs to finish me off here. He's going to go ahead and use Luffy's ability. Going to go ahead and discard a Sabo, put a Sabo and Rocket Luffy into life. We can expect a Kid Sabo from hand. Kid Sabo from hand. Kid Sabo is going to pull in Big Daddy Sabo. Sabo is going to come jumping right in. Going to go ahead and cycle that hand. And man, isn't this combo fun to watch? Oh man, it is quite a deck. I know there's other decks that can handle this deck, but we just lost a deck that can handle this deck, right? We just lost Red Purple Law, which is one of the best matchups into this deck, and so I'm a little fearful for potentially how strong this deck's going to be going into 08, because it does nonsensical things. Just give me give me Red Sanji. Just give me the Sanji leader. I'll just start swinging face and not giving a care. I'm going to put all these decks that do these shenanigans, I'm going to put them in check. Opponent's going to go ahead and swing a big old amount here. It's 13K. I'm going to go ahead and just lead him off with the slowest uncounter of it. And just, I like to strike some fear in my opponents here as I unfortunately take the L here. I saw a lot of, in hindsight, I saw a lot of non-counter. I also was looking for some O Come My Ways, because those O Come My Ways, man, if they had come my way, I potentially would have been able to survive that to a degree. We'll see. with that in mind, guys, thanks for watching, everybody, and we'll catch you in the next video.